It feels intimidating when you actually try to start it in real time. It's more when you ease into it.
I gotcha. But this is Ben's gonna have this stuff right here, right? So
Ben's gonna have this stuff here.
Hi Ben, good to meet you.
This is when you wouldn't talk about like what your wardrobe and the things that you wouldn't want to have said.
Understood. All right,
you could. Can you guys hear me though?
You sound good.
Yes, we're good. You're coming in.
Cool.
Coming in loud and clear.
Excellent.
I'm gonna mute myself and wait for you guys to call me in.
That's perfect. Jess, you ready to roll?
Yep. Let's do it.
Sweet. All right. Notes pulled up, and then we will jump into personal check-in time. It's fun to do this with a guest that knows all of this because he's listened to every episode and knows the flow. This is really fun.
It is.
Let's do it.
And we're off. Chris, I don't see you. Do you see Chris? Or is it just me?
I see Chris. Gosh. I see Chris.
All right, team. I guess if this goes on YouTube, they'll just be like, "What's wrong with this?" It's just one of these.
I think everyone will. Our audience will be able to see all of us. So just close your mind, visualize and
just assume that I'm smiling and nodding at you because that is most of what's going to be happening.
Okay, got it. It's here. It's right here.
All right. Here we go. And 3, 2, 1. Careful.
My son's coming down the metal spiral staircase, and it's loud. But he did a nice job.
I got a dog barking in the background. It's just this is life. This is pandemic podcasting. This is what it is. Okay, we're just gonna be real.
We got to be real. There's no other option. Hi, Rob.
No.
Hey, Chris. I see you. Not that it matters. No one cares that I can see you. Okay. Should we start over?
That's true. Yeah, let's start now. That'll be the bonus footage for the DVD.
Awesome. Of the DVD.
The DVDs even get made anymore? Yeah. What I just felt like I was 70 when I made that.
Okay.
Yes. All right, here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Hey, friend.
Jess.
How are we doing?
We're back. We're here.
We're here.
We made it to another episode. It was looking dicey there for a second, but we're here.
We did. One more week down, and this is all about America. Can't wait to get into it. Can't wait to get into America.
Wait to get into it.
Yep.
America. Is that how we should pronounce it? Yeah. We
wake up,
we
America.
Joke for our listeners.
Do you have that?
What was it?
That's a real thing. That's like a. Have you heard this guy?
Is that talks like someone says?
Yeah, I can't remember his name. Bill Cunningham. Oh my gosh, I'm having total recall from my 20 years ago in Cincinnati, Ohio. His whole thing was called "Wake Up, America."
That was it. He was like a radio host or something?
Republican. If it matters.
All right. That was a very that feels like a very narrow audience that we're speaking to right now. Like the Republicans in Ohio, a very specific zip code in Ohio, maybe. Access to a radio station 20 years ago. If you're listening, please respond via social media and let us know.
They'll be like, I know Bill. He was a big deal there. Yeah.
Or maybe, is he a listener? Could he be a listener?
Doubtful.
Maybe.
It's doubtful, but I would love it.
But hey, we're going to talk about Bill. We're going to talk about people who like Bill, people who don't like Bill, like America. We're going to cover everything today, but I get ahead of myself.
You are.
Personal check-in time. This is what we promise every time. How are you doing, friend? Catch your listeners up.
I'm good. Listeners, when they get this, I guess we're doing this constant progression of where my son is. It's like, where's Waldo? Where's Trey in the world? My son.
Where in the world? Another 20-year-ago reference. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Yes.
Do you remember
no, I do totally. Yeah, with the hat and the trench coat. Yeah, she was an idol of mine. I was like, she's so stylish and cool.
That game was awesome. CD-ROMs.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh, that's so great.
Back in time.
I learned how to move around, your desktop that way. Anyways, okay. But so Trey he'll be, by the time listeners are listening to this, he'll be in school. He'll be firmly planted, have been attending some classes, which is awesome. But when we're recording this, we move him in tomorrow, or we fly tomorrow to Florida. So that's truly my personal check-in, because even though it's kind of weird in the time zones of when people will hear this, it's real for me today. So about
what a huge
24 hours.
How are you feeling?
I'm actually fine. You don't know how you're gonna walk into this like sort of chapter of your life. Are you going to be a total crazy person, manic? Or are you going to be crying in your soup every night? I've been pretty compartmental about it all, so I haven't really been thinking about it. I've just been focusing on work and getting the next thing done and getting him down there. And I'm certain that on the flight back, I will be a puddle of tears. But right now, I don't have time for it, and I don't want to like consume myself in things that like I'm really excited for him. Frankly, I'm excited for him, and I want to celebrate this time, and then I'll manage my depression when I get back.
Here we go on the flight. Right. On the flight back, I'll hit you.
That's exactly right. Tips for any empty nesters or people who are sending their kids to college. At least for me, I've booked lunches and dinners all of next week. Like I am busy. Yeah. Yeah. So I've got things to look forward to. Yeah, things to look forward to, which is great. Mm-hmm.
Hey, look at you! Way to pursue health. That's awesome.
Thank you. Kind of my jam in my professional life. So I sort of have to like walk the walk.
Isn't that awesome? Isn't that great that you're you're professionally committed to being healthy so that you can help other people?
Yeah, no, it is. It's a nice bonus, a win-win around here, especially for the people who have to deal with me. They're like, you're obsessed with personal development, which makes our lives sometimes crazy, but sometimes much better than most because I actually care quite a bit about it.
Yeah, I always envy the movie stars that get paid to go like get ripped, like spend 3 months to go and they have all the special food that arrives at their door and nutritionists, trainers. I'm like, I mean, if I had that and I was getting paid
all day, man,
then yeah, being in shape would be great. But it'd be so much easier.
Sadly, we're not in that 0.000 whatever percent of celebrities that get that free expense card. Yeah.
No, I have to make all of my own meals, and usually they're what's easiest and what can boil on the oven most quickly.
Yeah. I get it. Well, you got 4 kids and a dog now, so I don't know how you get any food, like any real good nutrition. Your wife takes care of you, though. Speaking of your wife, 4 kids, and a dog, how's life?
Yes. Speaking of. Yeah, thanks for asking. So you're sending your kid. Can I say kid?
Forever.
Weird now. You're sending your grown adult son. No, man, to college. I'm sending mine. I'm not quite there yet. All 4 of mine are going to the dentist this morning. So that's fun.
Which I find highly efficient as, a busy mom myself. I find this very highly efficient. I don't know how the dentist feels about this,
Hey, they're a well-oiled machine. They really got it going on. We were talking offline before we started recording, the technology. I feel like we're the theme of this episode is apparently throwing back to 1985. I guess that's what we're just going to lean into that. But I mean, my dentist experience was not what my kids are getting at this thing. I mean, TV screens in the ceiling. They're wearing sunglasses. I think they're a lot more aware and cognizant of radiation now. I feel like maybe things were a little more loosey-goosey with X-rays back when I was coming up, which may explain a lot.
I was going to say, we'll soon find out, right? Like what the long-term effects are on us. Yeah.
Soon enough. So,
that's awesome.
But hey, we're stepping towards health. I don't have the nutritionist and all the things, but I'm going to take my kids to the dentist, and I'm just going to pat myself on the back for that one. One step at a time.
I love it.
Shall we introduce our guest? I can't wait for our audience.
Yes, set up the whole it's like we flipped the script.
We are doing that. We are flipping the script. I don't even know. Yeah, we don't really have scripts, but we're
flipping whatever we do
in the podcast world. Yeah.
I have scripts. So now that we have video, I have all the. You have scripts too. Don't play. You have notes.
I do.
We're gonna flip the notes. How about that?
I don't know why I tried to get too cute with that, but you're right. You're exactly right. We're flipping the script because we both have them. Let's not pretend like we don't prepare.
That's right.
Our guest today is a unique one for a couple reasons. I want to introduce him. Before I want to welcome him, make sure he can hear us okay. Chris, are you there? Can you hear us?
I'm here. I'm Kevin and clear.
Hey, Chris.
There he is.
Welcome.
There he is. Chris, I'm going to explain to our audience who you are, because you fill a special place in our hearts here at the Just Podcast. And your resume, you check off a lot of boxes, and I'm really, really excited for this conversation and the role that you're going to play in it. So for our listeners who don't know, Chris is he's on the Just Podcast team. If you've ever been scrolling through our feed and wondering, I'm title hunting. I'm looking for that hook that's going to really make me want to lean in and what's that one about? That is Chris. Chris is our title guy. He is on our editing team. He listens to every episode, finds the heartbeat of what we're talking about, and elevates it so that our listeners will be able to really capture the spirit of the conversation and want to lean in with it.
He makes us sound good.
But he does. He comes up with, he churns these things out like it's breathing, and it's really impressive to watch. Our listeners don't know any of that, how that sausage is made behind in the shadows, but we're pulling him out from the shadows today, and he's going to fill the role of host. We're actually going to empower Chris, and we'll talk about power later. So, Chris, don't let the power get to your head. But we're going to empower him and give him the proverbial microphone. And Jeff, you and I are going to step into the guest chairs, or the hot seats, I guess. We're going to be our own guests, which we've never done before.
No, I'm excited, kind of, and nervous a little bit because, I can tend to wander. So Chris, that's good though. Chris, that's right. Chris, you got to keep us
Are you asking to be kind? Be a kind host. Don't be mean. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just kind of
make sure we stay in the boundaries. We don't wander off. Who knows where?
Yeah, right.
There we go.
Exactly.
There we go.
This will be good.
Well, Chris, we're excited to have you, man. I just think that for our listeners, you're a really close friend of mine, and I think for our listeners to be able to hear these topics, everything, you're more than just someone that listens to our content and helps us come up with titles. You're someone who I reached out to because I knew that you attempt to live these values out of the Just Podcast each and every day in your personal life, professionally. I've been your friend long enough, and watching you do that in the different spheres you occupy. And so for me, handing an episode over to someone to come up with kind of finding the heartbeat of it is a really vulnerable and kind of a precious thing. And it was so easy to trust you with that because you're someone that really embodies the spirit of the Just Podcast. And so for our listeners, Chris is a gifted writer, thinker, communicator, and he just does so much of those things so well and with such humility. So we're excited to have you do this, man. And with that introduction, I'm going to hand over the microphone to you and let you take away this interview of this conversation we're going to have about this article that I'm really excited to put in front of our listeners and be able to unpack together as a group.
Yeah, man, I'm ready. Yeah, thrilled to be here with you guys. Like Rob said, it's weird for me because I feel like this is an introduction for me, but also not new because I'm like, no, I've been with you guys every step of the way. I am all in on all this stuff, and not just as somebody helping to get it out there to say hey, I see myself as inviting people in the front door. You guys have the house. We got the living room set up. You got the dining room. This is people don't know, and I'm like, hey, come inside. I'm not making anything special, but I could tell you to come inside, right?
I love that.
But I've learned a ton from you guys, from the guests that we've had on the past now 2.5 seasons, and so this podcast specifically has helped me a lot in terms of reframing what justice is, how I could personally pursue it, what's going on in my work world, in this nation. So it's been more than just kind of a fun thing to engage in. It's enriched me personally, so it means a lot.
Awesome.
So,
thank you.
You see what he did there too? It's more than just. You see, I feel like that was an accident. I can't get away from the just puns. I'm hardwired.
It's gonna be there.
Our audience, our listeners are used to that.
They are. So here's where we're going. You all already hinted at it. We're talking America. Here we're recording kind of between two really key dates in United States history, Juneteenth and July 4th. I know a lot of our listeners are doing some of their own wrestling with the relative, meanings of those two dates. And Rob, you keyed me into this article we're going to kind of dive into today called The Four Americas by George Packer. It's in the latest Atlantic magazine. And this is, if nothing else, I think the listeners are going to want to know, we think you should go read this article. But it's long, and so what we're going to do here is a little bit of a digest for them. But it's worth a read. Honestly, it's worth a reread because of how it provokes a lot of questions about the meaning of the United States, which is kind of, I think, a fascinating idea. So I want to cue it up to you guys. If you feel like you can grasp it, how would you capture what he's saying? What are these four Americas? I want to dive into what they are, strengths, weaknesses, where we play into it personally. But this is something you guys were really passionate about, so I want to kind of hear the way that you frame these four.
Yeah, I can dive in first. I'm really looking forward to hearing, Jess, your thoughts as well. But I mean, it was really striking. I mean, it's an article that approaches a topic that isn't new. We live in a very divided, polarized, tribalistic society right now. That's not a hot take, but I do think what it did that made me share it with the both of you and say, man, this would be really something that we should be really interesting to have this nuanced conversation. What jumped out at me is the way it defined the categories. It felt like it elevated. It talked sincerely. It felt like it sincerely elevated strengths and weaknesses for every type. And it didn't really play a favorite and demonize the other three. It didn't hold up one and said, this one's perfect, and these other three are what's wrong with America. It said, you know what? Each of these have their flaws, but each of them also have their strengths. And I think for me, that was a really interesting exercise because it was challenging biases that I had of like, okay, I definitely resonate with one of these, but it took me through an exercise that I think we need more of in our country. And I thought, man, July 4th is a great opportunity to walk through that type of practice together as a group and like model, hopefully for our listeners, what's that look like to like self-select where you are in this quadrant. I don't know if it's a quadrant, but if I want a quadrant, why not? And then also be able to like look at the others with an open mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really valuable experience. So that was my take. Yes, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I assume we're going to set these up in just a second, or I can actually set all four of them up. But there are the four Americas that we're referencing today are the free America, the real America, the smart America, right, and the just America, ironically. And when I was going through the article, it's so interesting because, and if you haven't listened to the podcast from the very beginning, you won't know this about my background, but I'm biracial, and I was raised in a very small town of under 300 people in Northwest Ohio and in the Midwest. So when I read, the archetypes, essentially, they brought them to life through personality types almost. And so you got to read the archetypes, and they would, they would attach, Sarah Palin to the real America and kind of almost hear her talking as you're listening to that archetype. And I couldn't help but identify moments in time just as a person, right? I always say, like, I don't speak for for all women in America. I don't speak for Black women in America. I don't speak for single moms. I speak for Jess Avard. My lived experience, because my lived experience is so unique. I was raised in a Reaganomics, world, a Republican family in a small white community in Northwest Ohio. So we teetered between this idea of a free America, which was very much built on Reagan politics and this notion of bootstraps and, this false notion of equality, just like buckle up, buttercup, and do your best and we'll all be able to make it. And then this idea of Palin, who she represents, which is the real economy, which is very much my
there we go.
Small town, right? I mean, I was surrounded by, it's agrarian. It's, you got the little mechanic and a four-way stop, and you've got, people who are living in trailer homes right in and outside and around my town. And folks were very blue collar, and we helped each other, and we didn't need anybody else but each other. I mean, it's like reading these archetypes. I'm like, this is my life in real life. And then you move into like the last 15 years, and it feels very much like the smart America, right? Where you kind of get lulled into this idea of this intellectual and sophisticated way of looking at living. And now here we are on the Just podcast talking about equity and what does that really mean, and what is systemic oppression, and just questioning. We're doing a lot of questioning, I think, as Americans. I think it's just important. I wanted to lay this out in one full swoop because as I was reading this, it's complex and layered. And you could find yourself having a bias potentially. You're saying, oh, this is so wrong. This idea of a free America is BS. I'm like, it is a part of a longer and more of a longer narrative of thinking, the way people thought, the way people process, the way people position themselves in power dynamics, and we have to recognize it so that we can decide how we want to move. So anyways, that's how I experienced this article. It was really cathartic, frankly, because it was like walking through time.
Yeah, I'm really glad we let you actually set the contours of these four Americas, Jess, because there is something about the personality of each of these narratives that is really critical. You can hear them as ideals, right? Which is part of Packer's point in the article, is that if we're trying to figure out who the United States is at its best, we've got competing threads, and they should really work together, right? Freedom is not a bad thing. Intelligence is a good thing. Being connected to real people, an actual place with real, that's good. And justice is good. So how do they work together? But it's more than just how do we take these, 30,000 foot ideals, and it's more a matter of like, what are the people who live in this narrative? What is their life like? How did they get to this point where they're thinking that way? What are they struggling with? And Jess, you kind of typify having lived through, and really you could resonate with a lot of them because you know these people. You have been at key points, you have been kind of one of these various people. So you feel the tension personally that he's talking about societally.
Yeah. And I wouldn't shy away from that, Chris. I would say that there's no doubt in my mind that I bought into all four of these at one point in my life. I mean, unapologetically. It was the Reagan, we were a middle-class family. We benefited greatly from Reaganomics. Now, there was a whole side of our country that I had no idea was small. I was 6 or 7 years old. I had no idea that another half of our country is falling apart as a result of some of those policies. But I was taught that, we were in the position that we were in because of the Republican conservative principles that we held true. So I unapologetically can find myself in every category. Then I think it makes me much more sympathetic and less judgmental in general, just in life in general. But I also think I have to work really hard to have strong opinions too, because I feel like tension between these four. So
you can just empathize so much with